Welcome back. A statue of Virginia Woolf in Tavistock Square in London has had a QR code added by the local council that sets out her imperialist attitudes and offensive opinions. The QR code has been attached to the effigy of the author of Mrs. Dalloway and to the lighthouse in Bloomsbury. When scanned, it brings up a lengthy explanation of views highlighted as unacceptable. The measure is part of a scheme drawn up in the wake of the Black Lives Matter protests to address the connections between local statues and, quotes, racism, slavery, imperialism. It's part of a project which is backed by National Lottery funding to make meaningful connections between our diverse communities and Camden's public realm. Joining me is one of Virginia Woolf's last surviving direct relatives, her great niece, author and broadcaster Emma Woolf. Welcome to GB News. Welcome back. Very briefly, a biography of Virginia Woolf.
So Virginia Woolf was obviously a famous novelist, a famous modernist novelist, born in 1882, who wrote throughout the early part of the 20th century. She wrote books such as To the Lighthouse, Mrs. Dalloway, The Waves, Between the Acts, lots and lots of books that are difficult but very, very interesting in terms of the modernism, that getting inside of daily lives rather than the outside, rather than the writing about the exterior the way that Dickens or Trollope did. Virginia Woolf was the writer that sort of moved things on, along with James Joyce and people like that. She was married to Leonard Woolf, my great uncle, who was a famous kind of political thinker, Fabian, a member of the Fabian Society, and they were part of the Bloomsbury Group, which is a group of writers, thinkers, economists, people like Maynard Keynes, Lytton Strachey, Dora Carrington. So very, very influential artists and writers that were living in this area, kind of now governed by Camden Council, in the early 20th century.
That's a brilliantly succinct biography. What are the sorts of offensive things that she's alleged to have said? Sorry, what are the things that she said that are alleged to be offensive?
Well, Camden Council are making sort of slightly vague comments about offensive attitudes, imperialist attitudes. I'd just like to drop in there, imperialist attitudes. Virginia's grandfather, Sir James Stephen, actually drafted the Slavery Abolition Act in 1833, so that is absolutely ludicrous. She's been called anti-Semitic, which is odd because she married a Jew. The thing about Virginia, she's irreverent. She's a warm writer. She's curious about people. She's not a racist. She's not vicious. She's not spiteful.
Use the N-word?
People did then. We are talking about 1882.
Use the N-word.
I think she may.
And I think at one point she described somebody's arm as being as black as a monkey's or something like that.
OK, but we need to remember she was writing 142 years ago. Camden Council and you, in a way, are expecting of her the standards of 2024, these ultra-woke standards, the Black Lives Matter kind of trope where everything is politically correct. That is not the way it was. She was a Victorian. In fact, she was socially very progressive. She was a feminist. She wrote A Room of One's Own, which we now refer to, A Room of One's Own. No, Virginia was the one who said that a woman, if a woman can write and earn her own money, she needs a room of her own and £500 a year or whatever it was. She married into a Jewish family at a time when that wasn't, all of this stuff. She's been called a homophobe. She's been called homophobic when actually she was passionately in love with Vita Sackville-West. She may well have had a lesbian love affair. We don't know that for sure. There's so many ludicrous...
And some of the people you mentioned in the Bloomsbury set were certainly gay.
They were certainly gay, and they were extremely liberated. And that experiment that they did in the early 20th century, where Virginia and her sister lived alone with other young men. They made comments to each other. They had dinner parties. They made comments about sex. They talked about love and about life and about... They were incredibly progressive. So to make her out to be some kind of racist, anti-Semitic woman is just wrong. And I've read her letters and I've read her diaries. I haven't just read the books. It's very revealing. And people... The reason I object to it is because when you attach something like offensive attitudes, it mud sticks.
It could be said it's just a QR code. I mean, no one is obliged to scan this QR code. They haven't taken down her statue. They haven't put up a big placard next to her statue. They put up a QR code. Mm-hmm. Is it not a bit snowflake-ish to object to QR codes? Can't you get over yourself?
Look, it's the first time I've ever been called a snowflake, so that's something. I suppose there are two things there. Firstly, I don't want people standing by the statue staring at their mobile phone. I want them to stand in Tavistock Square, as they do now, with old copies of To the Lighthouse, and I want them to think about Virginia and about her writing and about what she went through and about how much she loved London and about the world wars that were going on and everything that she wrote about, because London was an incredibly special place to Virginia Woolf. And that's why we get thousands of American tourists and Japanese tourists and Italian and European tourists from around the world coming for the Bloomsbury Trail, coming to Camden. And Camden Council should be celebrating that. They should be making a big deal about the fact they have Bloomsbury. The other thing is, there is an irony, Michael. This is a woman who spent her entire life trying to express what was within her, trying to capture in words what it feels like to be a human being, to be alive, to be depressed, to be sad, to be happy, to be in love. And she's reduced to a statue with a QR code attached. So, yes, it does matter to me. It matters very much.
Well, and I think another answer to the QR code point is that once you do reveal the QR code, it makes all these allegations.
Yes.
And as you say, the allegations at least need to be seen in the context of the time.
Of the time, and contextualise it. And just remember, 142 years ago, we've made such progress in terms of how we describe people, the language that we use, the sensitivity around colour and race and difference. But also, it's inaccurate. Virginia loved difference. She wasn't someone who just spent time in her socially... I mean, she was upper middle class, for goodness sake. She could have just had these posh dinner parties all throughout her life. She rambled through the streets. She talked to the housemaids. She loved difference. She loved different people and curious things that were happening in the streets. So I think it's misleading. I don't think it's just, oh, it's no big deal. I actually think it's misleading to attach words like offensive to her. It really does leave a taint for me. It leaves a taint. Look, I'm a Woolf. I'm going to defend her to the death.
Well, that's exactly
I adore Virginia. I'm fiercely proud of the Woolf family and the Woolf heritage, and I will fight for that forever. But it's wrong as well.
Fighting for the Woolf family name.
Of course, absolutely.
With lupine ferocity. Thank you very much indeed, Emma Woolf. Now, I have to read this. A Camden Council spokesman said, representing Bloomsbury was a pilot project to help our communities and visitors develop a greater understanding of statues and memorials in the borough. Last year, we worked with specialists, artists and communities to explore and examine the lives and works of Virginia Woolf, Bertrand Russell and Noor Inayat Khan for this pilot project. These are available via the Camden People's Museum website, which can be accessed via QR code on site. We're currently developing plans to interpret further statues and memorials in the borough. Thank